and prevent usage, particularly among the youth. But what are the challenges of dealing with drug abuse in Nigeria?
Now, our guest will be giving us answers on today's edition of the program. And just as you said, coincidentally, today happens to be the International Day for Drug Abuse and Human Trafficking. And it's something that we can't stop talking about, Kingsley. And I know that we've had several guests on this program over time who have, dealt extensively also on this issue.
No doubt about that. It's a problem that has to be tackled, continuously, because the consequences are there for all to see. I mean, you have a number of persons who are without jobs in the first instance, and so they take solace in the illicit drugs that are commonly available to them, whether cannabis or some other substances that they abuse fairly frequently.
All right, that's the first issue we'll be dealing with today on the program. Our second topic for discussion shall be on the 2019 edition of the annual Nupe Day Festival. We have illustrious sons and daughters of Nupe Kingdom to discuss the celebration and its significance. Welcome to today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. I'm Rhoda Anonam. It's always good to have you join us on the program. We're broadcasting live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA, and we're live here in our Abuja studios.
My name is Kingsley Osadolo. I joined my colleague Rhoda to also welcome you to the midweek edition of the program. As always, the complimentary part will be brought to you, and these include newspaper review, business, and others. For sports, of course, if we do have the time to take it. I'm sure you're watching some of the matches of the ongoing AFCON.
Well, we have a game today.
Yeah, absolutely.
About,
we have.
I think the past 3 or so.
I'm not quite sure what the time is now. We'll have to look up the schedule. But you had two blockbuster matches yesterday: Ghana and Benin Republic, and Cameroon against Guinea-Bissau. So marvelous goals that was scored by both Ghana and Benin Republic. There are no minions anymore, by the way.
No, not at all.
And to imagine that the players of Benin Republic, they all look like giants. That's a match to behold. In the meantime, let's take the highlights of the morning news. And here is our colleague, Usman Aliyu, with the highlights. Usman, should I ask you if you watched any of the matches yesterday?
I'm sure Usman was at work here. I'm very sure. I think I saw him here yesterday around that time. Usman, it's over to you.
Thank you, Rhoda and Kingsley. Good morning. Here is the news. President Muhammad Buhari says his administration's efforts at ensuring autonomy for the state legislature and judiciary is aimed at not only strengthening democracy and deepening inclusiveness of citizens, but also guaranteeing fairness and justice for ordinary Nigerians. This was while receiving the report of the Presidential Implementation Committee on Financial Autonomy for the state legislature and judiciary.
Recommendations clearly, Your Excellency, spell out that if uniform modules for implementation of financial autonomy for state legislature and state judiciary are approved for implementation across the 36 states of the Federation, it will no doubt strengthen Nigeria's democratic principles, practices, and public governance at the state level, thereby guaranteeing independence of all the three arms of government at the state level. In this connection, Your Excellency, we pray Mr. President to issue a presidential executive order so as to aid seamless implementation of the recommendations.
Meanwhile, the federal government says it is not only irrevocably committed to the Change Nigeria enterprise, but also the goal of achieving an inclusive, secure, and prosperous Nigeria. President Muhammad Buhari stated this while receiving in audience a special delegation from Nasarawa State led by Governor Abdullahi Sule.
I emphasize the need to invest in education, primary health care, agriculture, and security as the foundations for sustainable progress. I want to use this forum to again solicit the support of all states to align with those 4 pillars. We must all have a collective vision for sustainable development.
Into the National Assembly now, President of the Senate, Ahmad Lawan, has assured Nigerians that the 9th National Assembly will ensure that annual budgets are passed within 3 months. He was speaking when he granted audience to the Nigerian Senators Forum.
Majority of the people, whether they are individuals or businesses or corporations, they wait for the budget. So we want to see a budget process that starts and ends within 3 months between September and December, so that we go back to the January to December budget cycle by the grace of God.
The ECOWAS Council of Ministers wants member states to work at removing all obstacles militating against effective integration of West African sub-region. The ministers are meeting in Abuja ahead of the summit of heads of state this week.
I urge you to continue in your efforts to improve the effectiveness of all our institutions and prudent management of communities' resources in order to achieve the fundamental goals of our regional integration process.
Aim is to have a commercial market working with commercial rules that will be sustainable, and we think that in that way the people will have electricity, the best price of electricity.
The First Lady Aisha Muhammad Buhari has received the Queen Mother of the United Nations and the Mama of Africa, Dr. Diloe Blakely, where issues of advancing the cause of women, youth and children were brought to the fore. State House correspondent Aliu Kabir reports that Queen Mother of the UN is an African-American who is visiting Nigeria for the first time in 30 years to attend the second African Women Colloquium on Development organized by Pan-African Young Women Development Initiatives.
I see women being involved with affordable housing. I see them being engaged also in agriculture, because when we could feed a nation, then you are sustainable to feed the rest of the world.
We are really proud of you, and we'll continue to pray for you.
And on security, the Inspector General of Police, Muhammad Adamu, has deployed men and dogs of the K9 Department of Police Force to railway stations across the country for detection and prohibition of crimes and illicit objects.
Deployment was designed to address the manpower gap of the command and reposition them to address vulnerability, projected threats, and security challenges which the increasing human traffic and expanding access of the Nigerian Railway Corporation may present.
And that's the news on Good Morning Nigeria segment. Rhoda and Kinsley will be rejoined after the break. Stay with us.
Correspondent Kolo Mohammed has details of the story.
Good morning and good to have you join us on Business News. The business community has welcomed the move by the Central Bank of Nigeria to recapitalize the country's banking sector. Experts say with more money available in the banks, business will not only spring up but grow sustainably.
That certainly is going to ensure that businesses do better, and there will be more businesses, of course. For we in the private sector, the better funding we can get, the more we can expand, and that's definitely going to help to reduce the unemployment rate in the country. So it's just one indices or index that affects almost every other thing, lending rate, and all that.
The central bank governor also intimated the nation that efforts are on to slow down inflation to single digit, with a target to propel growth to double digits.
We also hope that means that the lending rate will come down a little bit. And right now lending rate at over 20%, is really hard on businesses. But certainly, if that can come down, it's going to encourage economic growth. From figures available, over the past year, I think we've been at about 11.3, 11.25, 11.28. So if that comes down to less than 10%, I think that's a good one for the Nigerian economy. I hope he's able to achieve that.
About 60% of global shea butter is produced in Nigeria. This means Nigeria is supposed to control the largest percentage of the global process from shea butter. This is not so. Here is why, according to an expert.
Nigeria is yet to recognize processing. it is an act of processing that we can come up with various value chains. And when we are able to do this, that is this same point I'm raising, that unemployment, it will become a story in Nigeria. Millions of our hawkers, people that hawks on the road, they are supposed to be in the corridor of processing this shea butter. They can be in the plantation, in the production. After the production, they should start processing. We can have a mini centers where this processing will be going on. Then we are going to synergize with the other world, where they will now transform it into another product. But we can start from local processing.
And finally, it's now time to let you see where activities on the floor of the Nigerian stock market placed market indices. That's business news at this time. See you again soon.
You're welcome back. If you've just joined us, it's Good Morning Nigeria. Time now for us to take a look at the dailies that we have this morning. Let's see what stories made the headlines.
Our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atoyebe, is with us in the studios. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kinsley. Good morning.
Bayo,
good to see you, Rhoda. Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, Bayo, we have two papers with us this morning, the leadership and the pilot. Okay, we have also the blueprint, but then let's begin with the leadership. On the leadership, it has its lead story, 2019 polls, 60 political parties fought EU observers. That's the lead story for the leadership this morning. 2019 polls, 60 political parties fought EU observers, with a couple of riders there. Says elections were free and fair, wants President Muhammadu Buhari to sign Electoral Act. Server controversy ploy to destroy INEC's integrity. Server controversy ploy to destroy INEC's integrity, says presidential candidates. That's a story that's on page 4, and that's the lead story on the leadership this morning. Now let's move down to all the stories on the front page. Just on the right there, you'd see, that would be your left, you'd see Emir Sanusi, the second Lord's President Muhammadu Buhari, for prioritizing poverty eradication, suggests ways of improving federal government's fiscal position. Now, at the bottom of the paper, just below the picture story, there you'd see 7.1 million IDPs in need of assistance in the Northeast. That's a story that's on page 12. And on page 25, it says investment in Nigeria's telecom sector hits $70 billion US dollars. And on page 11, all right, here on page 11 says the federal government sets up farm settlements for herdsmen, and Lagos-Ibadan rail line not overpriced. There's a story there also. There's a story there. It's on page 5. It's just before the bottom of the paper. That's in red. It says, Etsu Kingsmen mark Nupe Day with prayers, and that's something we'll be talking about much later today. That's our second topic. It's the Nupe Day, Cultural Day today, and we're talking about its significance much later. You join us then. All right, Kingsley.
All right, from the Nigerian Pilot newspaper, from just immediately below the nameplate, right down to the foot of the front page. Stay away from Bauchi politics, Oshiomhole warned. That's on page 9. Danger, SON raises alarm over expired cooking gas cylinders. Details can be found on page 11. Now, the lead story comes with the headline, Relief, State Assemblies and Courts Get Autonomy Soon. And saying that President Buhari indicating that the autonomy will strengthen democracy. Now, below the photograph on the front page there, you have insecurity. Stop lying, Afenifere tells Oshibajo. Details can be found on page 8. And right there at the foot of the front page, you have a number of headlines there. That's what we have. It says, bring 2020 budget in September. Senate tasks Buhari. And court sentences pastor to 7 years for raping minor. And Osun pensioners protest over unpaid entitlements with alleged allegation that government is said to have diverted the Party Club refund. Yanko to Governor Fintiri, I've forgiven you. That's on page 12. Ayo.
Yes, let's start with the 60 political parties. A presidential candidate forum comprising 60 political parties chairman has described the 2019 general election as the freest, fairest, and the most credible. The forum of 60 presidential candidates passed a vote of confidence on the Independent National Electoral Commission. The opposition was led by Alhaji Shitu Kabir, indicated that INEC briefed all political parties severally before and consulted with them before the guidelines for the 2019 election were released. He indicated that 11 points were raised by the IPAC and Conference of United Political Parties, CUPP, which INEC followed to the letter. They observed that, adding that INEC informed them that due to non-passage of the Electoral Act, it will not be able to adopt electronic transmission for results, because it added that doing so would be unlawful. The only one of the 91 political parties saying a different thing now was represented at those meetings. They described the EU Observer Monitoring Team report as bewildering. They enjoined the National Assembly to revisit the Electoral Act as a way forward for the nation. The other story which Kingsley read relates to the submission of the report by the committee headed by the erstwhile Attorney General of the Federation. It was for the financial autonomy for state legislature and the judiciary. The committee submitted the report to the president, and the president asserted that the autonomy of state legislature and the judiciary would not be compromised. Malami, who headed the committee, said the recommendation, if approved for implementation, will strengthen Nigeria's democracy, democratic principles, practices, and public governance. Government, the president says, will study the report and take appropriate decision. Also at the presidency, leaders of a sociocultural group under the auspices of the Afenifere have demanded true federalism to address the challenges facing the country. They were led by Pa Ayo Fashami. They highlighted 4 other requests during the visit to President Muhammadu Buhari. In a text read by Senator Olabi Idurojaye, they asked for clinging to the spirit and letter of the federal constitution. They also made suggestions on security to the state and even local government level. Education, they demanded, should be made free at all levels as a gift to Nigerians. Youth employment, they said, should also follow through technical skills acquisition and digitization, as well as ICT. Others they highlighted included power supply and agriculture, especially reviving cocoa, groundnut, palm products, as well as cotton. Among the delegation was also the APC national leader, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and he explained that the visit was to congratulate the president and also harp on the belief in our diversity, avoid adversity, and progressively join hands to build the country. The president thanked them and stressed that institutions like theirs, which are constituency and constitutionally represented, can help establish the country solidly. So you have visits from leaders from the Southwest. Also, yesterday, the governors in the Southwest also held a meeting. They met at Ibadan, specifically to provide solution to security challenges. The 6 governors were in attendance, and the host governor, Governor Sheyi Makinde, who was hosting, described the problem of insecurity in the zone as a snake on the roof, and we cannot ignore it and go to sleep. He, however, assured that tailor-made solutions will be thrown. The governors shall not allow the actions of miscreants and enemies of unity to destroy age-old responsibilities. He said it is their responsibility as governors to ensure that everyone in our midst, indigene, alien, is assured of their security of their life and property.
All right, Bayo, let's quickly take a look at our editorial for today. Our editorial is on the blueprint. It's on the blueprint, and it's on youth leadership of state legislature. I'll just on the blueprint there, you'd see it. I'd like to just take some paragraphs. I'll begin from the second paragraph. It says, it is instructive to know that the Not Too Young to Run Act, which was signed into law in 2018 by President Muhammadu Buhari, became operational in the 2019 general elections. Now, I'll go to another paragraph. It says, but quite significantly is the emergence of some youths as speakers of their representative State House of Assembly. In Oyo State, we have Debo Ogundoyin, who is 32 of the People's Democratic Party. In Plateau, we have Abok Izam, representing the All Progressives Congress, APC, in Just East. And we also have other developments from other states where we have young people. You also have in Kwara State, where you have a 34-year-old who is Yakubu Salim Danladi, who emerged as the Speaker of the Kwara State House of Assembly. And I'd like to take this, that's another paragraph before you come in by. It says, this is historic, this is an historical development indeed, a landmark achievement for the Buhari administration, as it makes a paradigm shift in the evolution of evolution of Nigeria's democracy. All right, Bayo, let's take it up from there. We have youths now as leaders of the state houses of legislature. We had people being able to run now as a result of the Not Too Young to Run bill signed by President Muhammadu Buhari, which has already taken effect from the election that we saw earlier this year.
Yes, this is a consequence of the Not Too Young to Run bill that has been passed into law. And the editorial is observing that you now have people within the age bracket of 36 to 39 coming into contention, particularly for the position of president. And they remarked that somebody within that age bracket was third even in the presidential race, though from a distant position. They observe also that even young men and women as young as 26 years also contested in the House of Rep and other houses of assembly. What the editorial is emphasizing is that the youth have emerged as speakers in those three states you highlighted, and there is a challenge for them too, and a responsibility that they should at least show the confidence that has been reposed in them by being very responsible and serve their nation to the best of their ability. However, the editorial expressed grave concern about what it described as monetization of Nigerian politics. They observed that high nomination fees by political parties, like 45 million for presidential candidates and 22.5 million for governors and senators, is such astronomical and outrageous that young people may not be able to afford, and that will become a system that can undermine the Not Too Young law now, which is opening the door for young persons to participate in governance.
Okay, Bayo, thank you very much for being around today.
Thank you too.
See you tomorrow. It's Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll get into our conversation segments.
All right, you're welcome back, and if you've just joined us, it's Good Morning Nigeria. It's the 26th of June, and it is the International Day for Drug Abuse. And this morning, we're taking a look at stemming the tide of drug abuse in Nigeria. But we'll begin with views of Nigerians on the streets, on the challenges of drug abuse. And it's being put together by our correspondent, Abdulmalik Adiu. We'll be back in just a moment.
Every drug use starts with an initiation. There's a day that comes and you get involved in it. Most people will start because of peer pressure.
Most of the youths you see today that are into drug abuse is not as a result of their own making. It's just unforeseen circumstances as a result of maybe upbringing and one not meeting up to his expectations.
If you have a good job, you won't find yourself doing drugs. If you have a well-trained home, yeah, it's not really from the home, but it's from the person. It's a peer pressure most times. So it depends on how you lead your life.
Government should try to tackle all those that cultivated marijuana, all those selling the drugs. They should go after them and arrest them. I think it means. And when they arrest them, they should not just leave them go like that. There must be discipline.
Government should invest more money in youth empowerment, create job opportunities, so that the vulnerable downtrodden can be able to get a means of livelihood. I think it will reduce the number of unemployment. Then this issue of drug abuse will be reduced drastically.
All right, that's we just listened now to the views of a cross-section of Nigerians on the challenge of drug abuse in Nigeria. We have guests with us in the studios to discuss the issue in greater detail and what needs to be done to roll back the menace of the abuse. First, let's welcome to the studios Otumba Lanre Ikpemisho, who's a member of the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Drug Abuse. He's also a former Director General of the NDLEA. Tumba Ikpemisho, pleasure to have with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning.
Okay. Also here in the studios, we have Aisha Aliu Tafida. She's the Project Coordinator, Parents Against Drug Abuse. Aisha Aliu, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
You're welcome, sir.
And last but not the least, we have Ame Inalegu, who is Head Rehabilitation Drug Demand Reduction at the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA. Inalegu, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Good morning, sir, and good morning, Nigeria.
All right, so well, let's begin again, because drug abuse is a subject that we have taken on Good Morning Nigeria. We've had Otumba Ikpemisho on the program sometime in the past, but are we making any progress with regard to tackling drug abuse in Nigeria?
Yes, once again, good morning, Nigerians, and thank you for having me here. We're making progress. I've been here, lamented, I've been here, but believe me, this year, I can tell you that we're making progress. Nigeria is quite huge, and every little problem seems to be huge. So when you start tackling it, may not be easily noticeable. But I can tell you that the level of awareness now, thank God NTA has played this social responsibility role here. The level of awareness now is it's encouraging. There's nowhere we've traveled to that you need to tell people about drugs. They tell you so much, and they even go ahead to make suggestions about solutions. And this cut across, even the drug users. So we're making headways. Where we may not be doing as we would want at the moment is the supply, which is a big headache. Supply in the sense that if there is no supply, there probably may be no user. So we cannot ignore that. So, and maybe as we go on in the program, we will also make suggestions as to how to also ensure that we battle successfully the supply chain.
I was going to ask you, what are the numbers? Because you said we're making headway in terms of awareness. Supply is a challenge. What are the numbers we're looking at? Because according to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, as of 2016, we're looking at about 5.6%. But in 2019, today, we're looking at about 14.4%.
Yes.
Well, what are the numbers, and why is the number increasing?
This is probably the first time in about 20 years that a real survey is being carried out.
Okay.
So it's difficult to compare this 14.3 million with any other year because the evidence-based comparison is difficult until this moment. Now, having said that, 14 points, which translates to about 15 million really, is very frightening. But then this is the first time we are being confronted with the actual figures on ground. And what we found in the field now actually does not represent the opinion we had before. Okay. So I'm saying that at least we have basis now to say that we have started tackling. So that if by next year we can now look and say, okay, this is where we are. Number one. Number two, the awareness. You know, before, it used to be denial by everybody. Parents, even when you catch children and say, no, it can never be. No, God forbid and all that. But now, parents are beginning to take ownership of this fight. They know that what comes around goes around. And I can tell you that even schools that were in denial before, we have had students dying of overdose of drugs, and they were denying before. But now everybody wants experts to come and assist. And that is a lot of steps ahead. If we continue to live in denial, it will not help us at all. So it's not in terms of the 14-point-something million is quite frightening. But if you do not bring out the figures and everybody is aware, how do you know what to do to bring it down? Rather than just lamenting now, we know where to place it. We have the statistics. Okay, women, 1 out of every 4. Oh, children, this. We now know, we have a scientific way of approaching it now.
Okay, Otumba Ipimisho, thank you very much. We'll return to you, but let's bring in now Ame Inalego. Earlier in his remarks, Ipimisho did talk about the major headache being the supply side. You deal with the demand side. What is the picture with regard to the demand side?
Thank you very much, sir. And again, I say good morning, Nigeria. Well, because I come from NDLA, I would rather approach it from a balanced dimension. Just like he said, worldwide, there is the realization that efforts to control supply will not give the desired results without balancing it with reduction in the demand. And in NDLA, yes, like many nations of the world, we have done so much to checkmate supply. But the latest dimension is that there is a need to balance it. Now, how do you do it? So NDLA is embarking on strengthening bonds, strengthening communication. That's why you begin to hear people say, it is a challenge. We have a problem. Now people are, because of the strength in communication and in bonding, people are beginning to own up, to accept that there is a challenge. So we are doing aggressive sensitization. For us, on our part as NDLA officers, we are doing a lot of technical development, capacity building. So in most places, you now see a transition, a transformation. You know, while officers are out making arrests and checkmating supply, there is also an aggressive sensitization to ensure that everybody has a basic information as to what the challenges are when it affects or when it comes into drug use and abuse.
Tell us some more about the demand side. What are the demographics around demand? Just hang on a second, please. What are the demographics in the first instance? And what is the geography like?
The latest authority will be the statistics that we have from the UNODC in the study that the former DG has just talked about. It tells us that while the international drug involvement rate is about 5.6%, in Nigeria, close to 15 million people. And like you said, it's more frightening because if the population of Nigeria is 100 million, supposing it's more than that, it means we are talking about probably close to 30 million Nigerians, if we are 200 million like Nigerians are true to believe. So the statistics available is that out of the population of Nigerians, 14 million or above 14 million people are involved. Of every 4, there is a lady. And it's more frightening because out of every 20 that go for treatment, only 1 of them is a lady. And that is frightening. So what are we trying to do? We are reaching out to stakeholders, adopting a multidimensional approach to ensure that everybody is sensitized. But if you're talking about data as to what we are doing, all we have is a structure that sensitizes the people, create more awareness, and let them know that there is fire on the mountain.
I know you actually, Kingsley, you're talking about the demographics as to where and
that's right. What we hear, we have heard
we
that,
don't have,
it's 1 in every 4
for people.
is a
What
woman.
parts of the country?
Which parts of the country?
Do we have it most
Are they
prevalent?
school children? Are they media people? Are they? I mean, are they medical doctors?
We are looking at people between the ages of probably 25 to 39 years, mostly.
64 years.
Okay, 64 years, mostly, yes.
All right, let's bring in Aisha Tafida, who is the project coordinator of Parents Against Drug Abuse. Aisha Tafida, I'd like you to give us a very clear picture as to, especially with your dealings with parents, you know, what are the most abused substances that you get to find out, or what are the most abused substances that children are using? Of course, you're dealing with parents, so we're talking about children now or teenagers. What is the most abused substance, or what are they?
Okay, once again, good morning, Nigerians, and thank you for having us on this Good Morning Nigeria. When it comes to the drug abuse in Nigeria, parents and their children, what they abuse most, of course, you know, is mostly codeine.
Okay.
That's the young ones, and the adult ones tend to go to marijuana and then tramadol, of course, for painkillers and stuff like that. There are a lot more they do. They mix concoction for themselves, and they have names for them. And it's just unfortunate that those drugs are being manufactured in Nigeria. They are not even imported from abroad and stuff like that. And the little experience we have with the interactions and so on is all about how to get them out of these drugs and restore back their health, and then focus back to education and what to do next. But unfortunately, a lot of things is failing. Yes, I'm happy with the way he said we have progress in terms of awareness, sensitization. All voices are heard and everybody is aware now. Yes, drugs. But have we really treated the underlying issues to remove these drug issues? At least we cannot say drug-free country, but at least reduce it to some level that will say, yes, there is progress. No, to me, in terms of public health, we don't have progress on it. In terms of awareness, in terms of everywhere we go, drug, yes, there is a lot of progress, awareness and so on. But what's the way forward?
Before you start talking about that, because you deal with parents, what is the age range we're looking at? That is, the children who abuse codeine, what age range? And if we're talking about, okay, let's look at school age. Are we looking at primary school, secondary school? At what range?
Yeah, from primary school, it starts codeine. It's more on secondary school. But primary school tend to start from 9, 13, 14. We have those range, a lot of them when it comes to codeine. And talking about parents, some of them, they are in denial. They don't want to believe that my child is doing codeine. But the truth about it is it's always good to be checking because of peer pressure, because they have this fear. You know, at this adolescence age, I don't know. You have friends.
They want to belong.
Yeah, they want to maybe talk to a girlfriend and they feel shy. They can't come out in front of a class. You know, they always have that complex. And some of them will say, just take this. If you take it, you can be approached. You can approach the lady, or you can do this, you can do. So that's how they start, actually. I know one that is just afraid of swimming. He cannot swim. So a friend advised him that just take codeine and you can swim. You know, if you do this, all this fear will go. And he started by that. So.
Well, thank you. Let's Otumba Michelle. Again, I would like us to explore further the demographics before we come to the causative factors, because it would appear now that the fear of women, of chasing a woman, may be a causative factor that drives some young persons to get the Dutch courage, you know, from either getting themselves stoned on cannabis or alcohol so that you can chase a woman. But tell us about the demographics in the first instance.
Yeah, there is an interesting shift. We used to believe that largely we have problems in the northwest, Kado, Katsina, you know. But the report shows that we have a shift to the southwest, in particular.
Yeah.
as large as 23% in some areas. So the people who were in denial and in the south should wake up. In the north, because so much noise has been made, you won't believe at the level of success we have now in treatment and recoveries. Traditional places that we have ignored, we have found some to have been very helpful. So there's a need for regulation of such places now. Now that we know that the problem is quite overwhelming, the regular hospitals, rehab centers cannot accommodate the level of people requiring treatment now. So we need to make use of what we have until we get what we want. So the South needs to pay attention. You know, actually, we found out that the noise had been much in the North because it was an unusual behavioral problem in the North. For you to be addicted to something and you are missing your steps, and it was unusual. But people drinking alcohol has always been there in the South. So I think because of that, they didn't know when this has shifted from the regular alcohol. Now, I was talking to a professor from one of the universities in Southwest and said, no, this claim that this thing is in the North is not true. That there, children's birthday in the university, and somebody was giving cake and one mixture, and she jumped 5 stories, and so many stories like that in the South, particularly in the Southwest. And I'm happy that a few people are waking up. We commissioned a private initiative or rehab center somewhere in Oyo State recently. People have to wake up to this reality that what we call treatment center is different from the regular hospital. I hear people say that, oh, let them go to general hospital. And it's not correct. A rehab center is a controlled area. The hospital is not necessarily so controlled. It's a controlled area where everybody must be trained towards rehab, treatment of drugs. Even the gate man, if not, that could be a leaking basket. You put somebody at the gate, he doesn't know what goes on, somebody drops something there, the nurse picks it up and drop it it's all useless. So a rehab center is a treatment center that is dedicated, and we must work towards this because so much has been dedicated, if I may say so, to supply. But now that we are users, for a very long time we say it's a transit country, Now that we're users, facilities must be tailored towards serious rehabilitation. And also, we have about more than 85% of Nigerians that probably have never seen drugs. We should also work on this 85% so that they are not interested in giving it a trial at all. Those are all the factors that must guide the way we fight this battle. And it's a battle that everybody must be brought on the table to fight. Education, finance, budget, everybody must be involved in it. We cannot afford to waste further time. If I may tell you what the president said at the inauguration, if I may remind you. He said, as the president of this country, I do not see any problem that is more serious, not even Boko Haram, not even the kidnappings that are going on, than drug abuse in Nigeria today. And that is a huge step forward, rather than the villa denying that we have this problem. The villa owes up to it. I have a problem. I need solution to this problem. And
I want to ask this question again. Who are those abusing drugs in Nigeria? We talked about women. We mentioned women. Are there professional groups? Yeah. What are the causative factors? Let's identify these persons who are involved. Well, is it just about every person on the street?
No, the impression is to feel that it's for people on the streets, the homeless and all that. No, it goes beyond that. We have teachers who are on drugs. We have military people. We have police. It's cut across. Mothers, and the most frightening one is actually the mothers. Because if you want, it's like you say on this program some time ago, if you want to educate a nation, educate a woman or another, if you also want to attack a nation, attack the women. because they are changing house. They want, you know, the administrators of our homes. And the moment these are the people that supply, there was a child that was being brought to a rehab center, and the mother bought drugs worth 40,000 naira for her, a 17-year-old girl that was being brought. So if you have an attack on the home front, it's a big problem. Then the teachers, who are the local parentals for these students, is a big issue. Then largely, to now come back to your question, who are these? Largely, they are the teenagers, they are the youth, they are the students, they are the unemployed, they are the street urchins. Those are the in group. Yeah, those are the larger percentage.
Because then we used to think that, I'd like you to also come into, because it used to be like, okay, it's people who are up there, who have the money, that can afford cocaine. Now that's no longer the case.
Thank you very much. Let me just add to what former DG has said. Worldwide, as of 2015, the population of people who were involved in drug use was put at about 260 to 70 million. But there is a population that's regarded as problematic drug use. Probably that's why in Nigeria the understanding is not quite clear. There are people who use drugs who are not having problems with it. And you find those ones, so many of them, at the upper echelon of the society. What I mean is that you could find a chief executive who smokes cannabis and probably may not be having any challenges with it. So nobody identifies him as somebody who is using. So the focus usually will be people who are doing it and already having problems. So by that same population, according to the world statistics, out of the 270 million that use drugs, only about 27 million are having problems. So when you come into a breakdown of who is using, you find it in every structure of the society. That's what I'm trying to say. The only reason is that some of them are capable of probably still making some level of success despite the drug use. But in Nigeria, like in other parts of the world, the people on the streets do not have the resources to be able to cut out, even when they are in need of treatment, they cannot afford it. When they are in need of societal probably engagements that can make their life useful, they cannot afford it. So what do? They fall off the streets and become threats to the society. And those are the ones that we see. The people that you see on the streets who are already having challenges are people probably who have already developed problems with drug use. But on a general note, there is no society, there is no caliber of people in society that you don't find traits or elements of drug use. It's all over.
All right, back again to Aisha Tafida. In terms of the underlying causes, what more do we know?
Well, when I talk about underlying causes, you know, we talk about pressure, peer pressure, which you just want to do it because you want to get high or your friend is doing. But 80% of it is because there are some issues going on which you don't even know the guideline of what to do. You just, like he mentioned, women who are the mothers of the home. And if you don't have a good mother at home who can guide you and be calm and tell you what to do and so on, where do you go from there? Because first teacher is your parents. So if your mother has a problem at home, how does she handle her children? You understand? We know that her capacity and the child capacity are different. So she will be teaching the child some things that is above his age, that when he goes out there, he has no, father doesn't have attention. Of course, we have that. Maybe he's busy with his own work to provide for the family, and mother is at home trying to do this and that. And then with our polygamy issues and challenges we are facing as women, you know, it's very tough to focus in the family thing. So you will see that a child is neglected or broken homes, which we have a lot here. So out of nobody really cares about them from the beginning. So drug is something they fall to forget about many things. You go to your school and you have teachers. Some of them, they confine in their teachers, you understand, to make them their parents. So if you don't have a teacher who really understands or who is also on drugs, how do you go from there? So these are the underlying issues I'm talking about. You have some internal issues It's not just about drugs. You can treat a drug and then come out free, and then you go back to the same problem. And then you look for drug again, you know. So if you don't treat that underlying issues, how do you get yourself out of drugs?
It's good you're already talking about it, Aisha Tafida. I'd like Otumba Bumisho to also speak to this issue. And that's the question that I was asking myself. Like, there's been an increase in the demand for the use of these drugs. What is driving that increase?
Well, we're underlining sometimes. Largely, we found out that some street children, it keeps them away from hunger. That's what they believe. That he doesn't know where he will get the next meal from, and his friend tells him, if you take this, you won't even feel that you are around, not to talk of feeling hunger. So poverty is there. Poverty is a major problem. Number two, hopelessness. Hopelessness, you know, it's difficult to see somebody who believes in his tomorrow, who will go and burn his life today. Again, the family values. Most homes now, regardless of their religion, the major common religion is about money, and it's terrible. In fact, we have misled our children by believing that we must all become Dangote. That is when you are successful. We must all become billionaires. That's when you are successful. And this is not true. We have seen people who have been there and had to even resort to drugs because of affluence. So how do you reconcile that? So there must be a deliberate effort by religious organizations, the Supreme Council, to pay attention to the family, to encourage members to pay attention to the family. There are times that the food is not really there, but when the father is around, the mother is around, they put their heads together, they can fix the family. And everybody, in the process, you are teaching the children how to also manage crisis in future. But when you are a responsible father only when there's so much money around, that is not training the children, because we may be opportune to have. How about the children? Then they will resort to drugs or something else. So we need to correct this. Then fathers or the daddies need to be around more these days, particularly in the north, where the women appear to be abandoned to face the challenges of these children. The kind of children we have now is different from the 60s, where you wake up and just give an instruction and everybody complies. What the internet is unleashing on our children now, everybody has to wake up to run after them. And it's actually better for you to be ahead. So if it is the children that teaches you how to use your phone and all that, then you have a problem. You need to be ahead and to know where to stop them, because if you don't know the evil it can bring, how do you stop them? So if you discover that in most homes, 3 a.m., children who are going to school tomorrow morning, they are still on their phones. This is something that we have. It's multi-dimensional approach for us to be able to get to the root of it. And there's no use anybody playing the blame games. Oh, it is you, it is you. We do not have that time. Well, we need to come back. Father, Daddy, you apologize. We were chasing money for school fees. But you are not aware that the school fees you are paying is not going to grant your son the education. Because most of the time, he doesn't even go to the school. So it's just a bloody waste of time. Pay attention. Get familiar with the teachers. Let's close the ranks. It is when we widen it, claiming that you are chasing money, that they pass in between, and everything you are struggling for gets drained off. So there is the need for you to deliberately know the name of your son's teacher. Who teaches you physics? I would like to meet with him. There are open days. We must be interested in all this. But the way we are running now, you see children already start business in secondary school, selling sweets, making it priority, because we have told them that the moment you are rich, it's okay. If life is good. So there is the need for us to get back to the home, listen to our wives. They have challenges, listen and discuss issues. Be close to your family. It will help this community because each unit, the health of each family determines the health of a nation. For you to pretend that, oh, it's his home, he can do what he likes. No, it goes beyond that. A lot of these children, they know themselves. You won't believe how much they bond. And they share the evil that goes on in the various homes. So I will encourage that governments should pay also attention. Let there be consequence in you being able to hold a home. Yeah, let it be rewarded in a way. Let the forms show that you are married and you are able to keep homes. You know, let it show that you're able to. We must get back to this. If not, there's a huge challenge ahead of us. The population is such that the institutions are heavily challenged and they are merely coping.
All right. Otumba, yeah.
Just make a conclusion in respect of the factors that is making the availability of drugs to be appear to be on the increase or on the increase rather. Availability remains the next factor to peer pressure. Cannabis is available in most communities in Nigeria because cannabis is cultivated in commercial quantities. So people just can walk across the streets and buy what they want to buy. Even in homes, like he rightly said, there are parents that have a display of alcohol in bars, social status, and at the end of the day, you're not in the house, the child has access to that bar, and at the end of the day, you begin to tell him, look, when I was at your age, I wasn't doing this. So availability remains a strong factor, especially in terms of the emergence of certain new drugs like the methamphetamine. In the last 3-4 years, NDLA has been able to dismantle about 16 clandestine labs. What is done in a clandestine lab? It produces methamphetamine. When we noticed it, the initial findings was that it was for export. The same way cocaine and heroin came and I say it was transit. What we're trying to say is that once these drugs are available, a domestic market will emerge. Yeah. And in most parts of the country now, you begin to hear people mixing methamphetamine, smoke it as potent. That's one of the most potent drugs in the whole of the world. And people go beyond that to mix it with cannabis and smoke. I handled the case of somebody who smoked it and raped a woman that was 84 years old. That's how bad it could be. So once drugs are available, from the cannabis to the cocaine to the methamphetamine to the alcohol, to tobacco, and like you said, parents are not helping matters. When the challenges come, there is a distance. The bond in the family is broken. It becomes a mother-son, your son. It becomes blames are apportioned. And at the end of it, instead of parents coming together to solve it, they become conservative. Nobody should hear it. You attempt to cover the smoke until the fire comes. And what we are beginning to see in so many homes and in so many societies is the fire, because we were not able to handle it when it was a smoke. So until we check availability, and checking availability should not be a government effort alone. It's multidimensional. Parents are involved, communities are involved. From the angle of NDLA, we tell people, if there is an agency called the fire brigades that is supposed to come to your house to put off fire when your house is on fire, what do you do when your house is on fire? Do you sit down and wait for them? Until the society comes together, until parents begin to know that this is not a government problem, until communities begin to evolve communal laws to say you can't sell drugs in this community. Otherwise, when drugs are available, drugs should be used.
We're already dealing with the supply side now. I'm just wondering, can we talk some more about the commonly available drugs? That's to say, in terms of supply. These would appear, I mean, for those who use them, to be over-the-counter drugs. Mm-hmm. So, how do we deal with that? Is there collaboration, for instance, between NAFDAC and NDLEA, to raid pharmacies, and then get rid of these over-the-counter drugs, or what else it needs to be done, since these are not prescription medicines?
Yes.
Well, okay.
Thank you. Those are the areas that really give us a lot of worry now, because, like you said, the tramadol that will be considered illicit is something that's over 100 milligrams. Yeah. And in Nigeria, we have 350 milligrams now in one tablet. 500 now in one tablet. So it is something that we should all will be worried about. Now, if you successfully control those 100 and above, this 50, which is within the law, like procure, instead of taking 1 in 200, what do? You buy 4, isn't it? So how do we regulate? I found out that the past 1 year that we have a problem with regulatory agencies in this area. So they all need to work together. NAFDAC, PCN, all of them need to work together. A situation where you have only one PCN rep in the whole of Northeast, it's not healthy at all.
What's PCN?
A Pharmaceutical Council of Nigeria. Those are the ones that regulate the pharmacies. And when you, again, assume that because he's a pharmacist, he will not do it, that's another leakage. We all must consider everybody guilty now until you prove yourself innocent. That is the way it should be approached. Because we are in an emergency situation. Even the drug people, enforcement people, everybody must be under check. Because you find out that those days, if you lose your toro, that small money coins, you find out that it's under the lantern that you have, you leave the lantern and you will be able to see under. So everybody must be checked now. Because we found out that drugs are hidden in the most impossible places. Yeah. The churches must be aware, the mosques must be aware, what do you call them, disabled that you pity and think that, oh no, somebody that was being flown abroad on a wheelchair, and a 64-year-old man, and he was greeting everyone, saying, oh, sorry, Baba, we know you are sick, but we need to check. He said, how do you check an old man? At the end, kilogram of drugs. So the drug is not something that you assume that, oh, this man is clean. At all, not even the medical doctors. All over the world, this is the way it is fought. We apology, you check me, I will check you. Then, like you have indicated, NAFDAC need to be better equipped to do its work. There's nothing that is new here that we are talking that they are not aware of. A situation where you have over 160 containers, that's more than a missile. Isn't it? Sent on Nigeria when you don't need up to 1.
Containers of what?
Containers of tramadol.
Where is it coming from?
Well, it's
mostly
India. It's been tackled at the level of our international relations, but largely we're worried that it's coming from Asia. And something that you require less than 1,000 kilograms, then you have 100,000 tons coming to your country. That is worse than AK-47.
Let me, again, from the point of view of a lay person, I mean, with some of these things are said to be painkillers, for instance, and there is a common name that we're all familiar. When we were growing up, I don't know whether the product is still available, there was one drug called Fensic. I'm sure you must have. Fensic, and then there was also Alabuku.
Alabuku is still there.
When did tramadol displace all of these ones as painkillers?
Let me tell you, that is the nature of drug abuse. When you take, when there was a problem, when they had problem with supply of codeine now, syrup with codeine, what did they do? They now found out that, you can mix one soft drink with one sweet. So that's how dynamic it is. Then I was told somewhere, please be careful when you go to the salon with your gray hair, that somebody will smoke it. That's how dynamic it is.
Have you suffered any such matter? Because your beards look like those of the former communications minister.
I think just like you were saying, I think the problem is that there are leakages in the system. Leakages. The truth
that is new.
The truth is that in most pharmacy shops, and I make bold to say it, the pharmacies that you see there is the photograph that you see on the wall. Yes, the pharmacies, most times, it's not there. And so,
where are they? Yeah, but I mean, you encounter them.
That's why we're talking about regulation and supervision.
Yes.
Until we step it up to regulation and supervision, we're not going to get there. The sales boy who is there has a mandate to make profit.
That's true.
Yeah, he doesn't have the training to insist on prescription before he dispenses. He doesn't even know they can. So at the end of the day, the guy comes in and says, how much did you sell today? Yeah, and from the point of NDLA, sometimes we make arrest. And the man drives in after about 4 or 5 hours and says, oh, I'm the pharmacist in charge of the place. By the laws that establish you, you are supposed to be resident. You're supposed to be on ground. So, and if there is no regulation, if there is no supervision on the part of the association, there will be, once in a while, the law enforcement comes in to make raids, and you begin to hear stories. Unfortunately, again, there is this one that we call the pattern medicine dealer. And the pattern medicine dealer is, unfortunately, one of the most culpable of all this. He knows the power that he had that gives him a license to sell drugs, puts him on the limit of what we call the OTC, on-the-counter drugs. But he goes beyond that, and sometimes they tell you, in the whole of this local government, especially in so many parts of this country, you may not even find one pharmacy shop. So when people are sick in that local government, what do? So the man is under pressure from the society. He is called a doctor. So if he's a doctor, you can't put a bar on him. And again, those are part of the things that the society must address. If you are saying this drug should not be available, what are we doing to make sure that the person who is supposed to who has the power and the training to do it is on ground?
That's what is also the role of the NDLEA, for instance, in dealing with some of these itinerant traders who sell capsules. You know, you find different colors of capsules, you know, in blister packs, and you find it. They put it on their head and everywhere.
You will agree with me that those sites are becoming rare now, and it's because of regulation. You hardly go to parks now and you see somebody with a basin or a tray of drugs selling, and that has to do with checkmate.
But they are still around.
Yeah, no, it's not. The battle is not won yet. But all I'm saying is that it is reduced to a reasonable level. I know if one person out there could be so much of a threat, but NDLA continuously raids these parks. NDLA is also in liaison with Minister of Health. Once in a while, we do joint raids.
I'm sorry, Ahmed. Is it? I'm not talking about your efficacy of your strategy, but Aisha, look, is it sufficient merely to target motor parks? Yes, that could be a major.
I just mentioned one of the places.
No, that's fine. You had the opportunity of responding to this. You know, you have. I said itinerant traders, you know, or hawkers. You find them corner shops. And as Otumba said, some of these drugs are hidden in unlikely places.
Exactly.
So a guy pretends to be selling cigarettes, and then in between, there was one comedy show I watched, something they call it Shaprapra or something. I don't know whether it's a real drug or so, but it was like a comedy show. So what is it that parents have found? Because sometimes you find that it is that security guard, it is that hawker, you know, who comes around, who sells candies, that is also peddling this. Is the NDLA not supposed to be tackling such persons?
It's supposed
Surprise
to be.
rates.
Yes, it's supposed, you know, surprisingly, they don't sell it now on the head.
Yes.
But if you go any kiosk now, I will give you a simple example of a house help who is an elderly woman, happened to be my woman, and she has pens on her hand and stuff like that. So all of a sudden, I just walked in to talk to her about something, and she said, I'm sick. I said, what are you taking? She now showed me 4 different types of, it's a painkiller actually, and it's about 100, it's like Cataflan, but it's not Cataflan. Like 200 mg of that in 2 forms, and then another different one in red. She said this one, they call it in Hausa, Chiwo Takwas, that it cures 8 different types of pains in the body, 4 of it. And then she took it. I said, who brought it? She said, the gate man has been the one bring it. I said, so the gate man is taking it? She said, yes, and it is very good. I said, you are supposed to take 50 mg of this. She said, it doesn't work for me. So it's like, it's everywhere. They are taking it. And I'm like, this is even a problem in my own house, not to talk up out there. About these pen issues. Is there everywhere, and believe me, it's not written cataflam on it. It's written different painkiller. So where are they getting it from? It's there. It's just
that one is. Agbo is there.
He's talking about the ones they meet in front of health medics and maybe probably arrest them. They are not in health medic side anymore. Go to communities, homes, even the kiosks.
He talked about the dynamism of the crime. He talked about the dynamism of the crime. The criminal is trying to be one step ahead of you.
Of course.
So, if you raid public places, that's why we talk about the Baron syndrome. The owners of these drugs actually are not the people. Somebody brings them. Somebody gives them to these roadside traders, and at the end of the day comes to collect his money. So what do? Our kind of job is intelligence-driven, is information-driven. That's why at every point in time we call for bond, we call for collaboration. It's not possible, it's not humanly possible for NDLA to be on every street in all the cities of Nigeria. So, but if there is information available, swiftly NDLA will move in. And we have always done that.
All right.
I just wondered, just before we take the tweets, Otumba, we had you on this program a couple of years ago. And in terms of identifying locations where you had a high incidence of substance abuse, there was somewhere around Wuse 2 that you mentioned, where they now have traffic lights. It's a fairly busy location, and you find stragglers and so on and so forth. What is the situation with that environment now? Has it been cleaned up?
No, they are still there. They are still there. I had the opportunity of talking to the chairman of NDLA recently. And he said to me and a couple of friends that he will give you his salary if you can tell him his streets in Nigeria where there are no drugs now. That's how frightening it is. That's somebody who is telling you the truth. That, yeah, you have put me here to fight this drug, but it's overwhelming. I need more support from everybody. He says, I'll give you my salary if you can show me a street in which there is no drug in Nigeria. That's frightening, isn't it?
It should be.
So the issue of we need a whistleblower, in NDLA today, you don't need. They know where they are. But do they have the resources to go after them? They don't. They don't. So I believe that the president that remarked that we have never had it so bad on drugs and that this is my headache, that is what is giving me about 70% assurance that in the next few months, the face of this war will change for good.
If it's a headache for the president, is it a headache for local government chairmen? Is it a headache for state governors?
They are all going to be brought on board now. Now, let me tell you, I've been to some states where the level of awareness is just so exciting. Everybody is working with NDLA in those particular states, though it's too far-fetched from the larger majority. Like I can mention like 3 states, straight away, it's very encouraging. You know, there's this conference they normally have of commissioners for health, and minister of health throughout the federation.
Council of Health.
Yes. Council of Health, where they look at some major issues. And they came to a conclusion that one of the major issues that is overwhelming our health facilities now is the issue of drug. You know, in one hospital around here now, you have 18 years old going for dialysis that should have been reserved for people who are. So now, if you place this side by side with the level of problem we have on ground, you see that it's still far. Some of those states have set up state drug control committees, but in some states, nothing. You ask the Minister Commissioner of Health, said, no, I've been disturbing His Excellency. So they need to wake up.
But very quickly, Otumba, I'd like to ask you, the theme for this year is health for justice, justice for health. How responsive has the criminal justice system been in terms of drug abuse?
Yeah, the criminal justice system has been very supportive. You'll be surprised. of the drug abuse. The only missing link before was the prison, where after all the effort, the judge gives his judgment, convicting the drug accused person, and he just walks home from that judgment. He doesn't serve the term. We used to have like 95% of them not serving terms before, but not anymore. So even that link, there's no agency in this country that secures conviction like NDLEA. But unfortunately, it was all that was inconsequential. After the conviction, the guy does not serve the term. There was connivance between prison and some court officials, and the guy just walks home. And when you have 95% like that, what is the consequence of the arrest and investigation and prosecution? Nothing. If it will not lead to him going to jail, it means nothing.
All right, let's quickly take our tweets. We have tweets via our Twitter handle at NTAGMN. If you want to be part of this conversation, you have questions, you have comments, tweet at us at our Twitter handle at NTAGMN. Our first tweet is from Sani Michael Omokaji. He says, instead of crying out wars against drug abuse, let's strive hard to first of all address fundamental issues like a lack of home training, unemployment, failure arising from poor leadership, and some other issues.
Festus Akimboyewa says drug abuse is a global problem and the federal government should launch a national drug control program with international coordination and tackle the vast assets available to drug barons in the country.
Ogochukwu at Morago, he says, tweet says there should be an urgent need to regulate the sale of nicotine-based drugs and all drugs over the counter, and also proper sensitization on the menace and consequences of drug abuse.
This is coming from Dele Jack Solomon. It tweets that there should be a well-defined comprehensive policy to control drugs that will include establishing a federal drug control center under the auspices of the Ministries of Health and Internal Affairs, which will collate information on drug use in each state of the Federation.
And Titus Monday Knock, he says, I think better enlightenment on the effects of drug abuse should be emphasized more proactively, and addiction rehabilitation centers also should be established. Support systems should also be established in all states of the Federation. Drug barons and couriers should be made to face the full wrath of the law if they're found guilty.
Let's back to Mike Ayankwo. The tweet is, we must not take it as a joke because more than 90% of crimes committed in the country are drug-induced. The Wah-Wah technique, a component of harmony restoration therapy, has been applied to motivate users to relinquish drug abuse. Can you ask your guest to explain this technique to us? Well, of course, that would be a specialist technique, so I don't think we'll have the time to get into the details of that technique.
And we have this one from Omogbola Babs. It says we must begin to look beyond banning drugs here and there. What happens to advocacy? Why can't we engage more in enlightening the vulnerable on the dangers of abusing drugs? We can't have groups set up in our primary, secondary and tertiary institutions for such advocacy.
Akeju Olagbaju tweets, now the effort to curb drug abuse should also be extended to prescription drugs. It's high time we evolved measures will also include the Pharmacy Council in the battle because they are the custodians of drugs.
I think that's all the tweets we... Okay, this one, the last one is from Chris Simeon. It says, lack of parental care is not about giving birth to dozens of children and allow them to be roaming on the streets. What matters is giving them proper care and good moral upbringing.
All right, that's what we're taking now for our tweets. We'd like to thank you for your contributions. We also would like to thank our guests who've been with us this morning. This is a problem that we all have to confront and lend our support and help, not just at the federal level, but also at the sub-national level. Our deep appreciation to Otumba Lanre Bimisho, former Director General of the NDLEA, who's now a member of the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Drug Abuse. Thank you for being with us on the program. Deep thanks also to Aisha Aliu Tafida, who is Project Coordinator of Parents Against Drug Abuse.
Thank you for having me.
And last but not the least, Ame Nalego, Head Rehabilitation and Drug Demand Reduction at the NDLEA. Thank you for being with us and good morning, Nigeria. All right, so that does it for our first topic for discussion. We're taking a short break now. When we return, we'll be dealing with the annual Nupe Day.
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria. We're on the second leg of our discussion this morning, and it's on the Etsu Nupe Day. 26th of June every year is marked as Nupe Day, a day that is very, very special for sons and daughters of Nupe extraction at home and in the diaspora. Historically, the day commemorates the event of 1896 when the Nupe cavalry forces defeated British colonial forces at the Ogidi under the reign of His Royal Highness Etsu Abubakar. On this morning, we have some illustrious sons and daughters of Nupe Kingdom to discuss the essence of the day and how it's being marked.
All right, with us in the studios, we have Dr. Sarah Jibril. She's a very familiar face in Nigerian politics, former presidential candidate, and also former special advisor to a president. She's the Jakadia Nupe, and that's also the Royal Mother Ambassador of all Nupes worldwide. Dr. Sarah Jibril, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning. Sorry, why you
Good morning.
And also with us in the studios, we'd like to welcome Alhaji, also an engineer, YY Sani. Engineer YY Sani, that stands for Yabagi Yusuf Sani. He's the Jakad Nupe, and also former presidential candidate of the ADP in the last general elections. Engineer YY Sani, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Kubelaji, good morning.
All right, and last but not the least, we have Ambassador Solomon Yusa. Ambassador Solomon Yusa was Nigeria's ambassador to Tanzania and is the Eton Nupe. Your Excellency, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Kubelaji.
All right, good morning.
Once again,
all right, let's begin with Ambassador Solomon Yusa. Tell us the history behind this day and this celebration, the Nupe Day Festival. What is it about?
Well, it goes beyond just the conquest of the victory at Ogidi. We came to the realization that the Nupe tradition was actually going down the slope, and there was a need to revive it. And we discovered that it was necessary for us to dig into our own selves and find out what it is that we can bring to the forefront of the people to make sure that we are what we are, and to remember what we were in the past. And we came out with the idea that we should celebrate ourselves every year on this particular day which we have chosen, because it's a veritable landmark.
All right, thank you very much, Ambassador Yusa. Let's come to Dr. Sarah Jibril. You'll have to pardon me. What is the plural of Nupe? Is it Nupes or Nupe is Nupe?
Nupe Chiji.
All right. So, who are the...
Sorry, Nupe, she's correct, but you can... Nupe is plural in itself.
Nupe is plural. Fine.
With the Nupe.
Nupe. So, who are the Nupe?
They are the people that speak the language Nupe, and they live almost in the central part of this country, and they have boundaries with Kwara, Kogi, Nasarawa, right? And with us. Quite expansive land, almost unused, with agricultural resources, and being warriors from the first statement. And the philosophical word for Nupenchiji is Ezaguru.
Meaning?
Mean a honest, good person, Ezaguru. And so their education, home education, has much to do with character building, to ensure that we answer to that. But most of all, I think we have Etsu Nupe. It's a highly honoring word. It's been so, and particularly the present Etsu Nupe, we all want to commend him that he has gone is royally aggressive to ensure that we polish up, bring up all these qualities that are almost buried about the Nupes. And one thing is that I want you to know that when we had Boko Haram incursion, it was immediately stamped, because Nupes are quite, maybe not only in family connections, in-laws or ethnic connections, and religiously, we are interwoven. So there is no way any of us from anywhere we are to encourage invasions or disturbances of insecurity. So generally, the Nupe land is secure. But one thing I know with our royal father, we've been pushing. With the geographical history I gave you, we are the only people that don't have a state of our own. Despite all the population, the natural resources, the philosophy of the Nupes. And when you said there were Nupes who wanted to be president, why were you surprised? Because we had the courage, the boldness as historical, inherited courage that this is right, is a guru. The right person must ensure that we have the right people doing the governance, the presidency all over, so that we can ensure the equity and the justice and the progress.
Let's bring in YY Sani. There are a lot of things about the Nupe people. I know that a lot of it will be highlighted today. But what are the major attractions to the Nupe land? Anybody out there who wants to know about the Nupe land or who wants to visit the Nupe land, what are the attractions?
Well, if you trace it back to the history, like which is what we are celebrating today, I remember that in the Nadel, you know, that is the writer, the Black Byzantine, you know, described Nupes, you know, 100 years ago in a book, that Nupes they are great farmers, great fishermen, great warriors. And you see it in the character of the Nupe man, woman, and also in our land. Nupes are found mostly in the riverine areas. You know, that's why we're in Niger State, Kogi State, Kwara State, like Her Excellency has said. And a Nupe man, you know, it's a person that personifies humility. And that is why you do not find the kind of crisis you find in other parts of the country. In Nupe land, we are so accommodating, we are so united in our ways. You know, we have different religions in very dominant numbers. You know, in Nupe land, and a Nupe man everywhere is either a number one, wherever you give a Nupe man an opportunity to operate, or a very good number two. And that's why somebody was saying that we have a lot of presidential candidates, you know, for Nupe, aspirants for Nupes. Yes, you can take it from Alhaji Shehu Musa of blessed memory, the former secretary to the government. He contested for presidency of this country. Jerry Gana, Professor Jerry Gana, a very fine, you know, erudite professor, you know, in this country. You can come to our mother here, you know, and then to my humble self. So what does this show? It shows that Nupes are achievement concern in terms of, you know, benevolently aggressive to give, you know, that which we have been described to be. We are great farmers, great warriors, and great fishermen, which means we are industrials. So a Nupe man, wherever you find a Nupe man, that's why you don't find us begging. You know, it's not common with Nupe people. People are human, you know, there are people who are accommodating and pride. I mean, they are proud of what God has given to them. That is the nature of a Nupe man. That's why you find that our royal father, that is His Royal Highness Etsu Nupe, who is the custodian of the culture of Nupe man, is everywhere. You know, I'm not saying that other royal fathers in this country are not popular, but you can take it after Sultan. He is visibly the most, you know, respected, you know, traditional ruler that you find in this country. Because why? He's accommodating, he personifies what Nupes are. And a Nupe man, there's something in our gene that attracts us, you know, attract people to us. Because, like I said, we're very humane in the way we approach issues. And Nigeria today requires these, attributes which I've mentioned about Nupes. People that will engender unity wherever they are, peace wherever they are. That's what we are lacking in this country. And that is why you find that, between us and the Katsina people, there's this, a historical, we are playmates. That's why we always tell that the president should come to Ethiopia so that we can, rob, mines and things like that. So what I'm saying is that Nupe people everywhere in the world, you can even to Second Republic, the late Makama, Aliu Makama, who was the deputy to, the effective deputy to Sardauna, the northern prime premier at that time, was the Minister of Finance, was effectively the man that created MPN that became, that ruled Shagari's administration. It was Aliu Makama Nupe that settled the problem between Shagari and Matama Sule. So you can see that Nupes have played very, very fundamental role in the development of this country.
That was what I was going to ask you. If you have all these qualities, what would you say are the fundamental roles or contributions that the Nupe people have made to this country?
At the start of the government, you find that, especially at the national level, I mentioned Shehu Musa, I mentioned Aliu Makama, I've mentioned Professor Jerry Gana, I've mentioned our mother here, our ambassador here, he was the ambassador to Tanzania, So you have so many of them that you can mention, believe you me. If you talk about, look at the last Inspector General of Police we have, it's a Nupe man, Aliu Potum, he's a Nupe man. We've given our due, really. We have done a lot for this country in terms of representation and contribution.
Yeah, so let's get this clear. The Nupes, you say, where they are fishermen as well as farmers. In that sense, they look like the Jaws of southern Nigeria. Is that clear? As fishermen, if they are found more along the river banks.
Yes.
Okay, that's one part of it. The second part, of course, would be this. In the various states of the Federation now, where you find the Nupes, who is their spiritual head in their current state? Do they report to the Etsu Nupe, or they have their own, local head? Ambassador Yisa.
Okay.
Well, I wouldn't know about that, but because what the Nupes generally do in any community they let themselves to be subservient to they serve the community in which they find themselves, and they don't create that. Some places where you are circuit this, circuit that. No, we don't do that. We are loyal to the gentleman back home.
All right.
Just another point. What is it about this 1896 incident that has now led to the annual Nupe Day? 1896. Well, you say there was some battle at Ogidi.
Yes.
There is also Ogidi, by the way, in Anambra State.
Yeah,
is it?
It's the one in Kogi State, the present-day Kogi State.
In Kogi State.
Yes.
So what happened?
What happened is that there was encounter between the British cavalry and the British army and the Nupe cavalry at that time, and if you remember, the Etsu Nupe, that is Abubakar, who was the Etsu Nupe at that time, was later sent on exile, from to Lokoja. That's why the first Nupe Day we had took place in Lokoja. We paid a visit to the tomb and things like that. So the instructive thing about what happened in that place is that, one, it retarded the affront of the British colonial masters at that time, against Nigeria, to the extent that I think what happened, they had to come back immediately because, at that time, it was not only British that was, hovering around, to Nigeria, but other colonial masters too wanted to come in. So the British had to come back immediately, and when they came back with that ferocity of, they targeted the Nupe land, and then one thing led to the other, and the emir was sent, on exile. So that's what happened. But what is instructive about that date is that, like Ethan says, we're trying to use that, as a platform to now bring Nupes together, that we are not laybacks. You know, we are people that are respected even from history until today, contemporary history, you find us. So we find a way by saying, okay, every year, 26th of June today, we should all come together and then renew contacts. You know, marriages have taken place because as a result of this thing, you know, people that you have not met before, you know, and it's international really. And in addition to that, we also have what we call Nupe costume, you know, which was not there before, which is what you see us here wearing. And this costume has 3 colors, like I've said. We are great fishermen, we are great farmers, we are great warriors. That's why you have them 3 colors, 1 red, blue, and green. It personifies who we are.
Very quickly.
We also have, yes.
Let's, we're out of time. Very quickly, I'd like Dr. Sarah Jibril to actually speak to this. I know a lot of events have been lined up for today. What are the events to highlight, you know, the culture and the people of Nupe? What events have you put together for today?
We must, before I talk, acknowledge all our leaders. We had prayers in the church. We had prayer also in the mosques. And today, in Bida, they are meeting to discuss this and to celebrate the day with historic topics. We are here telling the world what we're doing. But this is called a Migunupe, and that is what we are doing. Talking about how we unite and how we think about the history, what we do, and our development. But particularly, I think we must emphasize this, that if we had all this historical background given by the Almighty God, I think it's high time we must think of economic development. And that's why we had some initiatives before. We called it Sokola Nupe Lofi. It's called Cooperative Society, and then it became a union. Everywhere we had the Nupes. It started with the women. We were trying to encourage the men. And this is how we must have people organized with economic information and knowledge and initiatives so we can have because we are centrally located. And very soon, I believe we are going to have this central exchange market around Bida. We've been talking about that. And also the industries can now spring up. We become a kind of a hub to attract, to magnetize everyone. So we come between the north and the south, and you don't have to go all the way to Kano to go and get whatever we want. Everybody comes to the center, and then we exchange. We have waterways also. We have petroleum resources. We have solid minerals, and so on and so forth. But particularly, our even culture, our music is peculiar. We don't have the time to play, but I'm sure if you go to Bida today, you will see it, and the way we dance, and we just express the dignity of the good life the Almighty God has given us. So, ayoyi, ayoyi, ayoyi. If I did it, the whole studio, but I'll just do symbolically to greet everybody. So, God will give us more life and the opportunity to celebrate and to be the source of inspiration and development, not only in Nigeria, Nupe land, but the entire world.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Sarah Jibri, and we wish you all a very wonderful celebration today as you celebrate Nupe Day. That's the 26th of June every year. All right, it's on that note, we want to say thank you to all of you for coming on the program this morning. Dr. Sarah Jibri, the Jakadea Nupe and former presidential candidate. And also a very big thank you to Alhaji Yabagi Yusuf Sani, the Jakad Nupe and presidential candidate of the ADP in the last general elections. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Finally, a very big thank you to Ambassador Solomon Yisa, the Etan Nupe. Thank you very much for coming on the program.
All right, so that's the end of our second topic for conversation this morning. Let's go over to the Weather Center to check out what the prospect will be like.
Hello and welcome to the weather forecast with Theodora Itu. We expect morning thunderstorms over southern Borno, Gombe, Bauchi, Kano, Zaria, Katsina, and the eastern flank of the central states. With rains over the southwest inland and the coastal belts. And as we move into the afternoon and evening period, we expect rains over the stretch of the south and thunderstorms as we move towards the central states. And this is expected to affect Abuja, Mina, Yola, Mambila Plateau, extending towards Gusau, Sokoto, and Yowa. And that's our bit from here. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again.
All right, that's how it's been on Good Morning Nigeria today. Our major focus has been on drug abuse, and it's so mind-blowing, of course, very revealing discussion we had this morning. We do hope that you join us again tomorrow morning at 7, bright, early, and better. Good Morning Nigeria returns again tomorrow. I'm Rhoda Anona. Thank you for watching.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. Do enjoy the rest of your day.